Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach. I am the founder of the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program, creator of No Hassle newsletters, author of 6 books that you can get for free, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show. But most importantly, today, I'm the host of Dream Business Radio now in its 10th year. This is episode 545. This is my fourth and final show from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida. Note the palm trees, not a background. And today's my special guest is Mike Kohler. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Great, thanks for joining. And folks, before we get started, this episode of Dream Business Radio is brought to you by, guess what? The Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program. If you're an entrepreneur or small business owner who is tired of slow to no growth in your business, if you're feeling overwhelmed or unfocused, but especially if you're interested in learning how to create multiple streams of revenue, something I'm very good at, you want to check out the Dream Business Mastermind. About 26 members right now, all led by me, Captain Jim Palmer. You can do that at dreambizcoaching.com, dreambizcoaching.com. All right. As entrepreneurs and small business owners, we've been hearing an awful lot about storytelling. So I know you're going to love this show. I'm very much well, it used to be an online marketer, internet marketer, and there's all these different definitions, but it's really about building your brand, your reputation, telling your story, etc. And I don't know, I'll ask Mike this question so he can think about the answer. But to me, I think it's been about 2 years at least, storytelling, not selling and all that. So storytelling is big. So for more than 20 years, Mike has helped brands transform their digital content or how their digital content is delivered to consumers. In July of 2010, he founded Smirk New Media, Oklahoma's original digital marketing agency. Smirk boasts a team of in-house experts who champion creative content, digital marketing, innovation, and online customer service. His clients range from Fortune 500 companies and national brands to startups and nonprofits. Smirk believes in giving businesses a voice online, regardless of their size. Mike spent over a decade in journalism. So, unlike me, he actually knows how to write, probably doesn't need an editor, building innovative ways to reach readers with interesting stories using the various digital tools that we all have. He transitioned from traditional journalism when he saw the important trends emerging online and how brands related to the public. And today, Mike speaks nationwide about how brands can use storytelling and content strategy to get more customers, grow their bottom lines. He has presented at many national conferences over the last decade, including the 140 Character Conference in New York, which obviously is a Twitter conference. So, Mike, once again, welcome to Dream Business Radio. I'm happy we connected.
No, Jim, it's awesome to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah. First of all, I always like to share a little bit of the backstory. So, well, we know you went to school for journalism, so I don't have to ask. So you
Yeah.
went to school for journalism, which is actually, considering what you're doing today, that was probably pretty good training. You know, a lot of my guests, well, I went and became a lawyer, then I became an entrepreneur, or they went and became a CPA, but I didn't like numbers. I'm like, ooh, but you kind of got your training for what you're doing now, correct?
Well, yeah, I'm sort of a latecomer to the entrepreneur game, but yeah, my dad was in the newspaper business. He was a writer and an editor, and that was really a skill that I developed when I was a kid. And so my first job, when I could have a job, was going out and covering a football game. So, writing stories from that, and then it just sort of grew from there. I actually in college I majored in English and literature, just so I could scratch the writing itch a little bit. But
Mm.
it's all content these days, So as long as you know how to put a story together and sort of paint a picture for whomever is in the audience, then that's what's working now. It's like, I just happened to pick journalism, which wasn't the greatest business decision. It is an industry that's in real trouble,
Yeah,
but
especially the
that doesn't
newspaper,
mean
the
that.
print side, right?
Yeah, I was in newspapers, starting right when I was out of college until uh, until 2010 when I started my own business. But yeah, the appetite for content is still there, and still, it's still a big demand from just the public. It's just how do we deliver that, and who are they getting that from? So.
And it's so interesting to me how many different, we'll call platforms there are to consume information. When through my Success Advantage Publishing Company, we help people, entrepreneurs, create books. But I said, well, that's just the start. Now we have to do an audio book. We'll do obviously the Kindle book or do the e-books, all these different ways because people like to consume information in a different format. Very interesting. Your dad was actually a newspaper reporter. Did you kind of feel like you were following in your dad's footsteps, or did it just look interesting to you?
No, I mean, it definitely was following in footsteps. I mean, I don't know where the ability to write or the creativity came from, how much
Mm-hmm.
of that is nature or nurture, but just the idea, I was able to hang out in the newsroom when I was a kid, just being able to do that, and connect with people and write for a living was always appealing to me. And then once I got into the business, I saw all these other things that we were able to do as sort of the internet grew up right as I got out of college, and I saw sort of the intersection of all that. So it beats every man in my family before that had been working in a factory or digging a ditch or whatever. So it's not the worst occupational choice. So
um, So when you became an entrepreneur, was that more out of necessity because you kind of saw the writing on the wall for the physical newspapers, or did you where'd you get that inspiration to actually start your own content business?
well, it was sort of opportunity meets urgency a little bit.
Okay.
So, I had towards the end of my tenure at the paper had really started figuring out how to innovate with some of these digital tools that we had on hand. We social developed, live chats and live video developed at the same time, 2007, 8, and 9. We started incorporating some of that into the work that we were doing. And I was getting some attention for that innovation and going around and starting to speak at different places. But then, it really was this big hemorrhaging of
Mm,
revenue in the print side, but at the same time, this demand for businesses and brands to figure out how to use all these things for themselves. And so it was, I mean, I was like we talked about, my agency was the first one to sort of take the leap and become all digital when it was just
wow.
me. But yeah, it's just sort of, I could see that that's where the trend line was going.
Yes.
Being inside of an institution that had 100 years worth of history of not innovating
That's sure.
was not going to get me where I needed to go, and also gave me the freedom to make my own destiny a little bit too. So
Speaking of 100 years of history, no, I'm just kidding. Phil Brakefield, who I know very well. Sorry, Phil, I know you're not that old. Journalism in Oklahoma, no doubt. Boy, talk about a small world.
well, there you go. Yeah, I mean we're a little bit of the crossroads of America. So and the paper has been an institution around for since before the place was a state. So
Wow.
yeah, there's a lot of 6 degrees of separation here in Oklahoma City.
So let's talk about storytelling because I was talking with one of my clients earlier today about about content marketing, but also something I call drip marketing and things like that. And it's like to me, it's like it's all under one big umbrella, I guess. But the idea of storytelling is being able to capture first their attention and then keep their interest and things like that. It's way different than saying, "Hey, big sale this weekend, come now."
Right.
You know, that's like hit or miss. Storytelling as a part of online marketing is really important because it helps. That's how you help build your brand. So, what do you think keeps more business owners from stepping up and kind of telling their stories versus just saying, "This is what we do. Are you interested?"
I think they're too inside of it a little bit. The biggest pushback we get from clients, when we take on a new business as a client and we have these initial meetings with them, especially when we look at very family owned businesses or small service businesses or things like that, they don't think what they do is very interesting.
Yeah.
So we sort of had this brick wall of, well, either A, I'm boring, or B, nobody wants to hear about what I
Or
do.
they don't want to be in the spotlight. I'm sure you
Right.
find that a lot too. Look, I've actually had clients and prospective clients say, look, I do all this, I do it well, but I don't want to be a marketer. I don't want to do marketing.
Right.
It's like, don't put me in the spotlight. Well, okay. I don't know. I'm not a magician. So, but I'm sure that's part of it, right? People, they would rather just, I think if I was to put it a little more eloquently, it's like people want to provide a good service and have referrals come in based on that. They don't want to go out and tell their story.
Right. But I mean, they're doing it anyway as a sort of what we try to get them to understand, that they are selling themselves. Um they're doing it sort of informally or just in chit chat, with prospective customers.
Hmm.
And what we want to do is sort of really train their minds around, well, how can that story you tell be consistent? We're not telling them to make up a folktale about their, how they started, or anything. What we want to do is really help them refine the idea of what make, what we always say is, how do they do what they do and how do they know what they know? Because everybody's story in those two areas are unique. No matter if Joe Smith is a plumber and Joe Jones is a plumber, they came to it from different places. Why do they have
Right.
business? What have their experiences been with their customers? What's, everybody, of course, and you know this as well as anybody, everybody who makes that entrepreneurial journey, that small business journey, you know, is making a very brave leap into the unknown,
Yeah.
no matter what they do. And the perseverance that comes from that story is always interesting. And just, and that can really appeal. If you're a customer and you're just deciding between company A and company B, and company A is very transparent and open about who they are and what they do and how they do it, and the other one is, basically, a faceless franchise or what have you, then a lot of people are going to go with company A just because they're more real, even
Okay.
if all of that experience is online.
So let's kind of get into the nitty gritty for folks who really want to begin to become better storytellers. What are the essentials of telling a good story, Mike? I mean, what do you include? What do you keep out? How do you? And I think another thing which I get accused of sometimes, people sound like, oh, you're just bragging, right? But it's
Right.
not bragging if it's true. It might be bragging, but if it's true, you
Right.
want people to know that. So talk about the essentials of good storytelling.
Well, I think, step one is always, answering the why of why you're doing something. And it's not a lot, some people think like that, and one of the reasons people hesitate is like, oh, the why is because I needed to make a living. But
Right.
that doesn't always put it's very rare if that's really the only reason. There's decisions that go into that. And some of these family owned companies are because, my this I'm the fourth generation doing this, and I learned it from my great great grandfather to be in this service company. And so answering that why, what gets them up in the morning to keep doing what they're doing, is an essential part of this. And in the sort of step two is, well, what makes you better than the other guy? What do
Mm.
you do better than everybody else does? And again, this is where they might think that's bragging, but they know it, the answer to that. And it's just a matter of, how do they articulate that? What made that part of their business the one that they wanted to focus on, and how did they get really good at it?
The
And
other thing I want to ask, I'm sorry to interrupt. The other thing I want to
no,
ask you, Mike, is I mean, marketing is not an event. Marketing happens all the time. There's no faucet you turn on when you need clients and turn off when life is good. You're always marketing, right?
right.
But is that, I mean, that's essentially storytelling is a form of marketing, correct? It's not like, oh, here's how I do my marketing, but I also tell great stories. It is
No,
part of marketing.
it's the blood. I mean, it's the juice that
Okay.
makes it go. I mean, because even if you're marketing special offers or sales or whatever, all of that stems from your ability to know what you're doing
Mm.
and your ability to differentiate yourself from everybody else. And so you can't not know, you can't not know the story of your business and have any, and be able to compete on a deeper level with some other places, or else you're if you want to be just the phone number in the phone book, you can do that. And you'll just, and what you'll get is you'll get people who just go down a list and randomly pick you. What being able to tell your story in your marketing does is make you, really, I mean, it makes you stand out, which is like the most generic way of saying it, but it
Right.
makes you, it fleshes you out in the market, as opposed to other people. And
The other,
some people
yeah,
do
go
that
ahead.
through how they, some people do that through like name and logo and color, and uh some of those factors. But if you do it in, um people understanding your background and what your business is all about, then that's enduring. That's a lot more enduring than other things.
Yeah, I don't know who said it first. I sometimes associate it with Zig Ziglar, but I could be wrong. But he said people do business with people they know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust is developed from understanding who they are, why they do it, right? So
Hmm.
that's part of storytelling. I suspect a lot of people, when they're doing their marketing, even before storytelling became kind of the word, they're telling their story. But I think what you're suggesting, correct me if I'm wrong, is you need to tell a little bit more of your personal story, not just the corporate story.
Right. And that's, and social media is the reason for that. And
Okay.
because those connections between audience and brand are more intimate, or feel more intimate in the social setting, that's when you can become more transparent. You don't have to tell everybody your highs and lows. Oh, I had, you don't want to be like so transparent in that they see, see struggles or anything like that, but you can be transparent enough to say, what I always tell these people is like, tell them about your best day on the job, tell them about your weirdest day on the job,
Mm,
tell them about your hardest day on the job. If you go through that, there's there's types of content that you can create that turn people's heads. It's, for a long time, it's like the idea, I related it back to the idea of reality television. It's like
okay.
everybody, there was a lot of shows for a long time that were about businesses that weren't necessarily interesting. But
Hmm.
at some point, we had, five pawn shop shows. We had, shows about people, who
Storage
refix
units.
cars. We had people, parking lot attendant shows. We had
Yeah.
all these shows, and it just shows that there's drama inherent to that,
Yeah.
because what we try to get these people to understand is the stories that you tell with your friends, with a beer in your hand at the end of the day, are stories that you could also be telling your customers about how in how how you approach a problem and solve a problem.
And I'm a big fan of transparency, but I like what you said. It's something that's going to turn heads. So if I was to coin that phrase, turn heads, not stomachs. Like, you can be
Right,
transparent about your good day, your bad day, but you don't have to show them your appendectomy scar. Like, oh,
right,
this is really hurting right now, right?
right.
That's going over the top a little bit. Um, so this is a big part of your agency. I mean, is this really what you're known for, or is it just one of several things that you do at
Well,
Smirk?
it's something that we've developed, over the course of the years, that sort of combine, these journalistic roots of that I have with some of the marketing roots of the rest of my team, in what we call the content conversation, which is this first sort of big
I like that.
brain dump onboarding situation that we have, where we're really trying to pull out of the client. We want to be able to speak for them, be in their voice, tell, come up with messaging that's true to who they are. And it's just, what we're really doing is training them to think in this way, think in a messaging way, because as the relationship goes along, there's still going to be things that they see in the course of their workday that will make for great content, that
Right.
that they can relay back to us. It's just building in them that those triggers where they see, oh, we, we went today and, fix somebody's toilet because, down inside, the pipe were like six GI Joes that a kid had put, where things like that. It's anecdotes that can turn into great marketing messages. That can be. It's not just the regular testimonial. Ask your customer for a testimonial. It's like, here is the drama that comes with the work we do too. So.
I believe you're going to agree with me. I mean, storytelling is not just written word. It's not just a blog post. It's not a sales. I mean, it's pretty interesting you say that about the plumber. If I was that plumber, whether I'm solo or whatever, man, I would be recording some of this stuff and just pop up a video here or there. Look,
Right.
look what was going. It's the whole army, or
Well,
something
yeah,
like
it's
that.
like, one of the anecdotes I used to use is, if you were a garbage man, if I was a garbage man, and I would have an Instagram that said you know, at the end of the week, the 5 weirdest things that I saw this week
Mm.
at the dump, and you would run those pictures and people would eat that stuff up.
I think you're right. What you won't believe what I found in the back of the truck.
Right, right. It's like treasure. It's like treasure hunting. And
Yeah.
so, there's another story I tell all the time too, where I was talking to a group of pastors, sort of at the very onset of social media, when we were talking about, hey, where does content come from? And these guys were stumped as to, what content should I be putting out? I'm the pastor of a church. What content should I be putting out? And I'm
Hmm.
like, if only you had a book that you read every day that had a bunch of content in it. And my message to them is, the stuff that you're putting in your head is, the mess that's on your desk of magazines and articles and scripture and all of that, is the stuff that you can then turn into content. It's just
Wow.
not feeding your head, it's also feeding your audience with stuff that you think is interesting. It's
So we're
different for different businesses, but ultimately you can also be sort of the clearinghouse for interesting stuff that's in your space as well.
Some of the most successful blogs, by the way, they're known as curators. They're not
Yeah.
original. I mean, and so that too. So I want to ask you, maybe if you can share some evidence, anecdotal or otherwise, about the impact good storytelling can have. Do you have any kind of success stories you can share?
Well, a lot around the same time, um, so we started in 2010, and that's when I felt there was a real shift in, um, old brands versus old brands who were sort of coasting on their brand reputation that they've built up, for years, versus new brands that were embracing
Mm,
social media. And
okay.
we've seen in market share, uh, you know, because of the interest that my generation and younger has in these medium, uh, that they're more apt to go to a newer brand that's telling those stories, as opposed to sort of the brand that still runs the TV commercial or whatever. It's because of that, um, knowing who the people are behind the counter. We saw it in the restaurant space. We saw it in, there was a great example in sort of a jewelry store case in town where, um, there's one company that's been around for 100 years that still gets its share of customers, but the ones that are eating into their market share are the ones that are, super personal and transparent about who their employees are and
Mm.
what makes them good. And so, as this population, the younger population, the social native population becomes more and more of the decision maker of what they purchase and who they brands they associate with, there's going to be this flip, and it's already happening, of, especially when you get really local, of who gets, who grows and who doesn't grow. There was recently a moving company that came in just a few years ago in our market, that, they weren't a client of ours, but they were obviously getting help with refining that message and really saturating social with what how they felt about customer service and how they treated all of their work, and they're sort of the de facto choice for social media natives in town for that particular service. So
Interesting. How so? I want to fit in at least three more questions. So,
sure.
how long? About how long did that process take? Where they, some like you said, somebody's probably helping them, but refine the message.
Mhm.
Was that like a year, 6 months, couple of years, and
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it was probably over a year where it was like some of it is you have to be steady enough that there people expect to have a diet of your content
mm-hmm.
on the social channels that you're on. They're very good
Okay.
with Instagram stories, and then it's also like on their side, and this is we tell customers this all the time too. On the business side, making sure you know who's in your audience, and this is sort of tangentially influencer
That's job one,
marketing.
knowing who you're talking to.
Right, but and really on a granular basis, knowing, oh, this person who's asking us for services, they're they're influential as a customer. We're not hiring them to be an influencer, but we are noticing that if we do a great job for them, our message is probably going to spread, and that helps also. So it's
Mm.
really the quality of the audience that people are getting on places like Instagram, on places like LinkedIn, if you're a B2B, is also can also sort of accelerate that word of mouth if you sort of smartly choose how you relate to people.
I'm guessing that there are some platforms that are more easily adaptable to storytelling, right? I mean, if a YouTube, for example,
Mhm.
or you could have a story to tell, and you have to either shape it, tell it, write it, or video it differently depending on which platform you're going. So, in other words, you don't take one piece of content and put it everywhere, correct?
No, and we really talk about audience first before we talk about platform because of because usually those two things are very much related. Like I
Hmm.
said, if you're a B2B, you're in the business that you're in, or I'm a financial planner, or I'm more in that professional white collar space, then LinkedIn is becoming more and more of a really good storytelling platform because they allow you to write longer pieces. They're really integrating video now, as opposed to if you're trying to reach, you know, women, 50, 20 to 45, then Instagram is a really good space for you, or Pinterest is a really good space for you. So we really work with those customers like who is who's your ideal client? Where can we find them on the platform so we can target them both with this organic content and with some paid content too. So we we have gotten away with sort of try to post everything everywhere all at once.
Hmm.
Instead, pick your spots. And if you have a video is the best and best medium to use, then you can use YouTube, but you can also use TikTok and Instagram stories and Facebook stories as well. So it's
Gotcha.
sort of the audience dictates platform and content.
All right. We got about 2 minutes, Mike. I want to ask you one more question. I always prepare for interviews by going to somebody's blog. Yeah, I think it was a blog post that you had about what is a brand refresh. Can you do a brief shot on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been brought in quite a few times on for companies who have just gotten a little stale in terms of the last time they updated not just the messaging, but the look and feel of their brand too, and knowing how fast those trends change. It's they bring us in, and we really sort of do a nitty gritty audit of how all their work is currently performing now, but also what their competitors are doing. Because it's one thing to be stale; it's one thing to be stale when the guy next to you is fresh, and
Yeah.
and that's when the alarm bells are going off, and the life cycle for those things is much, much shorter now than it used to be. It used to be, hey, we designed our website, we can wait 7 years and then maybe we'll design it again. But we see brands now like refreshing their branding and their website and all of their social platforms like every 2 or 3 years, just in look and feel and message.
Wonderful. Hey, what a fun interview, Mike. I really appreciate it. You shared a lot of good information. I'm sure people want to connect with you. So how do they do that?
So our company is called Smirk New Media, SMIRK New Media. That's our website, smirknewmedia.com. We have a contact form on there that goes straight to me. I'm doing a lot of, free consult for like an hour to just talk to people about where their brands are. I'm happy to do that and spend some time with people to give them some perspective. So we're the only Smirk New Media in the whole world. So that's what all of our socials, and all my socials are MKOKC.
Great. So smirknewmedia.com.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Mike, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, Jim. Appreciate it.
Hey, folks, that wraps up this very special interview with my guest, Mike Kohler from Smirk New Media. Every time I say that, I'm thinking of the Smurfs from when my kids were way long ago, but Smirk with a K, newmedia.com. I highly recommend you connect with them. You will thank me later. You can connect with me, by the way, at getjimpalmer.com, www.getjimpalmer.com. That's my home base. You can find out more about how you can work with me or my courses online and otherwise. And you can find information about the Dream Business Mastermind right there as well. And if you're interested in getting a free digital version of all 6 of my books, they are available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble as Nook Books. They're also in the iBook store. But that's it. Until this time next week, another fantastic interview. I am Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach, and you take good care.